I have so much to ask you guys about the movie. I watched it last night. Probably shouldn't because I was a little terrified. But the first question I have to ask is for Nadia, just because, as the director, you said in the press notes that you wanted to bring the feeling of reading the book to the big screen, but that obviously meant making some changes. What was the most important aspect for you about getting from the original book to the screen, and then what were some changes you had to make when adapting?
Yeah, I think the film is in many ways it's the book just seen through a specific lens. And there were images in the book that were very important for me to keep in there. But also I had to kind of bring myself to it, and I think that I'm from a very large family, and I was so interested by how opposite to me Charles was, that being the last in his family, literally having every other member of his family buried in the backyard. Not in a creepy way. There's a graveyard, but and I was like, wow, this is a sort of fascinating space. I have a real terror of the day that I will lose my parents, and Charles was weirdly on the other side of that. So I got to process kind of quite a lot of feelings about my own impending grief, like this idea that one day that's going to happen to me, and on the other side there's Charles. Right. That was the kind of like emotional journey for me, I think, in writing the film and directing the film. But also, there were I had to, I changed the time period because I wanted to contrast kind of Charles's story about discovering his own history and his connection to Africa against one of the darkest moments in kind of African history, which is the Rwandan genocide. And I enjoyed the kind of different scales of that, but also the idea that like the genocide is just contained in his television in the film. You know what I mean? Like it's just something that he sees, and it was so far away, but I was living in Africa at the time, and it just felt so close and so incredibly real to me. So yeah, I mean, I think that the kind of changes that I've made are not about making it something other. It's about drawing it closer to yourself and inserting yourself into the story. So I no longer know where Walter Mosley ends and I begin. I mean, we're just like one amorphous blob.
I mean, that could definitely leads into, because for Corey, for you, obviously this is a very personal movie for Nadia. And then how did you translate that for yourself? Because you're in every scene of this movie, and you have some very intense scenes. Was there anything from the script that you were, when you read it, were a little nervous about going into, or was there anything that like you were more very excited about tackling?
I think just the entire, to be able to bring a character like this. I mean, it's an actor's dream, and also can be maybe a bit of a nightmare as well, because it can be challenging to, once you say yes to something like this, it's what you hope for. And then the challenge is, how do you lift this person off the page and in a way that's active and also truly gives him some agency and humanity. And I was just excited about the opportunity to tell a story that deals with trauma in a different way than we normally see Black men in particular, but also deals with love and redemption and getting back to who we know ourselves to truly be, or asking those questions of who that is. I get curious about a thing, and then I'm like, scratch the surface, scratching the same way he scratches that mask. It's like, what's underneath? What's underneath? What's underneath? We just keep digging. Now we'll always keep asking annoying questions and questions and questions. But like, I was like, and you never really quite figure it out. But I think that's what Charles is doing. He's constantly like searching and scratching and peeling away that onion. And
I think also, like, it was really. I worked with. I rehearsed Corey and Willem completely separately. They only met on set, really. And we had completely different processes, and I think with Corey, we did so much work about what his childhood had been, including questions about like who he'd kind of played with as a child, and what he remembered his mother and his father to be, and like whether his. I remember asking you quite specifically if you thought that your mother had ever tried to get pregnant again, and like what that what was it like to experience maybe them wanting to give him a sibling and not, but what I mean, like the kind of stakes of that. So we had a very intense psychological prep period of just asking questions, like question, because you can never fully know a person, but it's like how many things can we imagine about him?
But you also, at the end of it, can, you know, once you go through that process, you're so full of life, you know, and then there's this the quote about the quote from 6 Degrees of Separation about Catcher in the Rye, and like the boy who wants to leave. And he's like, I want to leave. And at the end, he wants to get out, but it starts to rain, and he can't move. And he's talking about paralysis. And like, that's the thing. There's so much life in there. And like, so I don't know, it was always a part of that as well. Like when you fill that reservoir up, and then you're watching this man who's stuck, how do you activate that thing? And that was just a fun journey to go on. But,
I really could listen to you talk about acting all day. That kind of leads into my next question for Anna, is because your character is very much removed from a lot of the, like, for all your character doesn't know you're in kind of a thriller. You're in a very different type of movie. Your tone.
Yeah.
You're like, I thought I was in
I'm like, I found some antiques. I met a man. Great.
I'm gonna start business.
But
Yeah.
that does, like, for your prep for the movie, how did you, like, you know, tonally know that your scenes were going to be, you still have some very emotional and very heavy scenes, but very different from the rest of the film. How did you prepare for this?
Well, I think to your former point in what you just said, I just had to focus on my scenes and my relationship with our tortured protagonist. For me personally, like the actor nerd in me was really into Narcissus' profession. It of course lends to one of the huge themes in this film, which is ancestry and lineage and identity. But just for me personally, getting into what this kind of person does day to day, what they dream about, why they're so passionate about this, that was kind of my way into it.
And I guess my final question then for you all is, you know, this is a very deep movie with a lot of themes and a lot on its mind. What do you guys hope is the one big takeaway audiences take away after watching it?
I think the thing I hope audiences take away is just thinking more about whose stories get told and who's telling them.
That's a great answer.
yeah. I always
God.
say, you know, you also sort of bring yourself to it. And some people always ask about, like, with films, what do you hope the audience takes away? But because films are mirrors, you know, it's sort of like you take away what you bring to it, how you sit and watch this movie. If you're sitting watching this movie with someone else, your relationship to, like, you take away what you bring to it. And I truly believe that. I'm like, you can't necessarily tell or dictate it, but allow the audience to experience the film. And that's the magic. You know?
Well, that's great. Thank you guys so much. I hope you have a lovely time and really enjoyed the movie. You guys did great.